What's going on, everybody? Eric Lindquist at Stochastic here on the OddsShopper channel, coming to you with a divisional round edition of NFL Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Goes a long way for me on this video. Goes a long way for you. That way you become a prize whenever great content is going live here at our little neck of the YouTube woods. Well, it's normally great content. The NBA has been just smashing here the last couple of weeks. Even some of the bets that have lost had some great CLV. Again, you can't necessarily cash that in at the grocery store, but it has been awesome. We've been very profitable in the NBA streets. Ladd McConkey got me off to it was a little bit of a tease, a little bit of a strip tease, if you will. And then, of course, I'm out there in Arizona for the Minnesota Vikings annihilation in person. That was hurtful. Did not have a very good betting weekend there. 2 for 4 here on this video of all the official plays. That is not up to par here. But Ladd McConkey, at least he came through it plus money, plus 145 there. Felt all right from the get-go. Again, one game down, we get the long bomb. Everything else kind of goes wrong the rest of the weekend, especially when it's Caps time. Spent a lot of money in Arizona. But anyway, 50% off, Lindy50, friends. You can sign up for that down below. The Vikings, they've taken my soul from me, so at least we don't have to talk about those idiots. But I think this is the most fun betting NFL weekend of the entire year. And, well, you're going to see the card. You're going to get treated as such. I am ecstatic about a lock that is plus 250. Yeah, you heard me. I'm ecstatic about a lock that is plus 250. I think there are tons of smash spots across the entire board. Some things that I'm really interested in betting that I haven't yet. I'm going to talk about all the ins and outs of what we're looking at this weekend, but only one close spread that we're really looking at here on the entire weekend, that being the nightcap, Baltimore, Buffalo on Sunday night. 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. I'm going to break it all down for you here on this video. So producer Jacob, let's have a better weekend, shall we? Without further ado, let's get to the picks. I said what I said, producer Jacob. Ladd McConkey got me off. Houston taking on Kansas City here in this one. 41.5 total. Pretty low. It's down there low. And I got to say, one of the things I was very curious about, because, I mean, Tua always inspires it for me this time of year, because last year it was him going out there in like negative temperature. I wanted to look very, very closely at what we're getting for the weather in Kansas City. And why is that? CJ Stroud plays in a dome in Houston. He basically has been kind of a quarterback. He was up at Ohio State that you didn't worry that much about, because generally their schedule was done in the middle of November playing up there. But now you're going into Kansas City. It's 20 degrees. It's going to be a little windy at kickoff. Not crazy windy for Kansas City's sake, but you're taking on a 15-2 Chiefs team on the other side. Now, they were 7-9-1 against the spread this season. And the Texans, I think most people that I saw over on X and about, fortunately, I didn't end up firing the LAC -3, -2.5 that I was staring at, because it just felt weird. It felt weird to be with like 78% of the money looking at the home dog and just being like, oh, I'm really not going to play that. Well, Houston eviscerated the Chargers. We did get the Ladd McConkey touchdown. Yeah, again, I was pretty happy about that. But this is really all about Steve Spagnuolo. He did interview here for that Bears job. I'm sure the Bears would love to have somebody that has been underneath Andy Reid, at least for the last couple of years, but a little bit more defensively minded. They're looking for somebody to mentor Caleb Williams, it would seem, at this point in time. But for this game, I think this comes down to 2 things. One, can Houston generate pressure against Patrick Mahomes? Because this is kind of a patchwork offensive line. Tooney's been going over to the left tackle position. I brought it up earlier this season. I think he's an absolute stud, and he's fit in really, really nice there. But Caliendo, Smith-Taylor across the middle there, yeah, Humphrey's still the best center in football. Nobody is going to argue that one, I think, at this point in time. But I do worry a little bit from what we saw from Daniel Hunter, from Anderson Jr., who was an absolute beast against the Chargers. And that is a really good Chargers offensive line. I think that they're probably top 5 in the NFL as well. If they're able to generate that kind of pressure outdoors here at Arrowhead, then we're looking at a more competitive game than what this number indicates. It's still Kansas City come playoff time here, coming off of a week of rest, getting the 1 seed. And that just has me a little bit off of this game from a betting perspective for right now. But if you made me fire up anything here, again, this is the one game that I don't have a play from right now. I'm staring at Travis Kelce here plus 150. Think about how many times we have seen Travis Kelce go out and just turn the switch on come playoff time. It feels like that was all he did last season. It's hard to know what is just aging and what is Taylor Swift money and what is, well, I don't know, Travis Kelce showing up here this time of season. It's really hard to decipher. I'm not a narrative bettor. It's fun to talk about. It's an interesting conversation point, but really, I'm a data bettor. I'm definitely somebody who's over here paying attention to the market and the movements. I'm market-based in a lot of ways, but I'm almost always looking at my projections as the say-all, end-all. And I think this is very close to a play. Travis Kelce is at plus 150 on DraftKings. DraftKings begging for the money here. That sets off alarm bells a little bit for me because they're generally the weakest in terms of the market. They are definitely, in terms of like DraftKings touchdown plays, the worst one to be betting. So I apologize to everybody in Maine, everybody in Oregon, all the states where it's the only book that you have access to. Maybe jump on Flip and find some stuff from time to time, but plus 150. And then looking at the 2+ touchdowns, I did stare at that plus 1,100 for Travis Kelce currently, and that is best available on FanDuel right now. So lots to decipher with this one. Again, CJ Stroud going out into the abyss, into the cold. Looked at some Nico Collins unders as well, because Spagnuolo, he will do a better job than what LA Chargers did of deciphering a game plan to slow down the one option. And Joe Mixon entering this one dinged up. We'll see how much he's able to provide here. Plus 125. I'd be looking at the other side of the market, but these no touchdown markets are just so ridiculous. And let's just get to the actual play, shall we? I mean, I am so unbelievably excited for this. 55.5 total, Washington, Detroit. Jaden Daniels is a stud. Am I sad because he lost me some money last week on the fact that even though he had a lot of designed QB runs, even though he had 13 total rushing attempts, 2.8 yards per carry. And you could say some of that is Vita Vea, who definitely slammed the body down and winded all around on Brian Robinson Jr. We'll get into that one for sure. But my favorite play of the entire week comes from this football game. Sorry, Mom, I can't talk to you right now. We've got too much to talk about here in the football streets. And that begins here. Washington, 8.5-point dogs going into Detroit. Now, the first thing is it is really hard to model this game out with 8.5 and then 55.5 because basically you're expecting Washington's offense to succeed. That shouldn't shock anybody based on what we've seen this season from the Detroit Lions. And obviously I've gone through a number of different iterations of this because Jaden Daniels is not going to be on the card here with the rushing. It is inflated to 54.5. They had the exact design runs we were looking for. He had the scrambles. He leads the NFL in scramble attempts this season. Yes, even more than Lamar Jackson, although he is second in rushing yards. Lamar Jackson just over 900. Jaden Daniels just under 900. But I am very much here for a couple of other plays. Let's start with Detroit's defense. They are down seven defensive starters. We'll see how the final injury reports wrap up because this game is the Saturday night, the main event, if you will, here for that game. And Washington, they're still going to be without Noah Brown on the IR. They're still going to be down a couple of other pieces, but I think pretty healthy for the most part in their skill position players, their main defensive core, even though they're not very good. You still, for the Lions side, though, have a lot of missing pieces. Hutchinson obviously being the glaring example on that defensive line. McNeil, Davis, Rodriguez, Barnes, Davenport. I mean, we're talking about major defensive contributors there, period. And then Zeitler, he's a guard, so that doesn't really count. But I'm very much of the mind that Washington will find success offensively. And if you mainly play aside, this would be another dog similar to like Houston. I would lean towards the Washington side, but I'm not going to do that because I think Detroit offensively gets back a massive piece in this one. That is, of course, the Sonic to Jahmyr Gibbs' tails. That's what they like to call themselves. David Montgomery of Iowa State. And as you probably know from this program, great things come from Iowa State University. Number 2 in the country, college basketball. What up? Anyway, we've got Detroit getting David Montgomery back here. And I think that adds a couple of layers. First off, Jahmyr Gibbs goes from like around 100 yards that we saw him at the tail end of week 17-18 taking on the Vikings in that main event to around 75, 79. We're seeing some random numbers in that upper sevens. And yeah, I'm not going to be partaking at all, even though I do think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get around 65, 70% of the running back touches here. Not crazy far off. I mean, Craig Reynolds got mixed in a little bit, but the big thing for me here is the running game on the Washington side. We saw nothing, and I do mean absolutely nothing, coming from Brian Robinson Jr. here last week. 10 carries, 16 yards, had no juice whatsoever. He had no mojo. No mojo for Brian Robinson Jr. And wouldn't you know it, the big thing that I wrote down that I was just very curious to see Austin Eckler. We're talking a proven running back, a veteran running back at the NFL level with playoff experience, even though obviously he played for the Chargers, so that's not good playoff experience. It didn't go well. But he ends up getting 8 for 27, 3 for 26, and he was picking up blitzes, picking up opportunities to really help his defense. And I think Detroit's going to be throwing a lot of those same looks at Washington here, trying to, obviously generate some of that, the mistakes that they kind of need, because defensively they're missing so much already. I'm very here for Austin Eckler props, but there's one that stands out above all the rest. And it's because Jaden Daniels does stuff with his legs. He dumps it off, does whatever else. I don't care about that. Austin Eckler, I think, ends up being your goal line back potentially in this spot based on what we saw from Brian Robinson Jr. last time around. Plus, he adds the passing game dynamics that when Brian Robinson Jr. was out earlier this season, we smashed the books multiple times here on this program and in the premium Discord with all of the props your heart could desire. Austin Eckler ramped up after the concussion, was out, the entirety of, let me pull this back up, weeks 13 through week 17. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks out with the concussion. Comes back in week 18, very slow to acclimate, but got mixed in enough. We are going to see a ton of Austin Eckler. I'm pretty confident in this one. Had just less than 50% of the snaps, 47% to Brian Robinson Jr.'s 51%. You also had 14% from Jeremy McNichols, obviously some 2 running back sets in that data. But Austin Eckler is plus 250 in an absolute shootout that's expecting 1, 2, 3, carry the 1. Basically, 6 touchdowns at the minimum here. 6, 7 from the running. We're talking tons of touchdowns. Actually, it was 7 to 49. We're looking at 6 touchdowns and then tons of field goals. That is an unbelievable amount of touchdowns. And to get the guy that I think is going to be the main catalyst on the Washington side at the running back position, we're getting it at plus 250. I have to fire that up every single time. So Austin Eckler, anytime touchdown, plus 250, lock button. Brian Robinson Jr., under 47.5 rushing plus receiving yards. That is minus 115 at BetMGM. Under. And of course, David Montgomery, I think he's very fascinating at 43.5. I haven't bet it yet. That's why it's in the lean category. Monty also plus 550 on both DraftKings and FanDuel for the first touchdown. I think he gets the first couple of looks. That's what they've done all season long, going back to last year even. David Montgomery gets those the very first possession will be David Montgomery starting at the running back position. You heard it here first. Love this football game. Also love giving you guys 50% off for that premium Discord. If you want to get all the plays early, minus, when the button doesn't end up going through for me on Thursday to get all the closing line value in the NBA streets. But that's beside the point, friends. We get tons of extra plays. Already 4 additional plays in the NBA streets on Friday, with more coming down the pipeline as I'm recording this about an hour and a half before the NBA starts up. But we got ourselves a first week of Lindy Discord for $10. We got a first month of Lindy Discord for $25, under $1 a day, just to check it out for a month. Plus, you know me by now, we are 2 months away from Major League Baseball returning. Oh boy. 223 units up last season. Have it all tracked. Have it all fired up. Oh, it was an unbelievable MLB home run season. Obviously, Corey Seager, double dong. Kyle Schwarber, double dong. A lot of that. There was the last guy, Cal Raleigh, double dong. 3 of the 6 guys that I bet for 2 home runs ended up coming through at 20-1 or higher. It was an awesome season, specifically in the home run department that carried the entire load. And obviously, totals were profitable last season, and spreads are always profitable in the MLB streets. So we are 2 months away from what was my best betting sport last season. I think a lot of you tailing me and following on this program probably know that as well. NBA's been fruitful. NFL, well, we ended up finding a profit there at the second half of the NFL season. And now in the playoffs, I got some work to do to repair my ego here. Lindy 50 would love to have you guys come kick it, talk process, talk all the bets that you don't always get the day of coming from me. Alrighty, y'all, back to the picks we go. Yeah, MLB, just even seeing trade news come through. This new Suzuki fellow that we've got to be paying attention to. Where's he going to land? Plus, the MLB odds board is a joke. The Dodgers, again, just juggernauts. Anyway, we got the Rams taking on Philly. Let's talk foosball, shall we? Wretched game when you're a Vikings fan. Should have worn a plastic bag over my head walking in here, but they're taking on Philadelphia in the Link. And in the Link, now things are getting ramped up. Green Bay, they couldn't do anything offensively against this Philadelphia team, but also they were down a number of key pieces. Obviously, getting Christian Watson, season-ending IR, right off the bat there, probably not going to be back for the beginning of next season. And then in-game, Romeo Doubs, even with the helmet on, the special guardian head, the guardian cap, hits his head back, concussion, out for the rest of that game. They had Malik Heath running routes out there. You don't want Malik Heath out there running routes, but Philadelphia's defense still continues to impress, continues to be number one DVOA in the second half of the NFL season. And I think they showed off why and made Jordan Love look like a little fairy boy. But anyway, we've got ourselves Rams money coming in right now, which is a little surprising to me. Now, the Philly money side is more dramatic. It's right around 70-30. And I don't talk about money splits all that much, purely because it's fluctuating so much from Friday into Sunday. And also, I try to bet these earlier in the week, but I do disagree with anybody who's putting a dollar down on the Rams here, purely because I think what we saw from the Vikings was just a lack of an offensive line and a quarterback who saw ghosts. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to necessarily have those issues, even though he's been holding on to the ball a lot longer. Just think he's been waiting and biding his time for something like this where, hey, Saquon Barkley isn't going to be guaranteed to run 100-plus yards. Well, actually, I have Saquon Barkley for around 115, but his props are up to 110. What a time to be alive. You're not going to play that. You're not going to play that. Don't play that. But we do have some interest here with Matt Stafford as far as some unders. Now, you go from the blitz-heavy Minnesota Vikings, number one, in terms of a blitz above, well, not blitz above expectation, just blitzing, period, right around 41%. Philadelphia is dead last in blitzing in the NFL because they can generate pressure with their front four. Hi, Carter. How are you this fine day? Without having to do a whole heck of a lot else. And this secondary with, multiple pieces from the University of Iowa, my rivals, whatever. We are definitely seeing a revamped secondary here on the Philly side of things. I think this ends up being a little bit of a smackdown, if we're being honest. And this is the only spread that I've currently bet because I just think -6 is way too much respect for what the Rams did last week. Is it a great story? Yes. Do you have a shambled LA right now and they're playing for a city? Yes. But Chargers sure didn't feel like playing for their city the week before. And I think it's going to look a little bit more akin to that 32-12 shellacking that Houston put on the Chargers here at the Link. Let's go outdoors, Matt Stafford. Let's have 7 in coverage and see how you deal with that. Because Matt Stafford, traditionally the best quarterback in the history of the NFL versus the blitz. Now, within the last 25 years, with the current rules of the NFL, I like to kind of reduce my sample size a little bit because I think Tom Brady, he was pretty good too. Just throwing it out there. So we are going to just fire up Philly -6. Oh, want to throw this one in for the people. South Dakota State legend Dallas Goedert is at +340, and he's still damn good. He got a lot of week 18 work purely because he was coming off of IR. They wanted to get him to stretch his legs. So even though every other Philly starter sat, he got revolved around really nicely in week 18. I like what we saw, and he ends up being the primary target earner there for the Philadelphia Eagles here. I think this is just too wide of a number at +340, but I repeat, haven't bet it yet. I think this one, though, as opposed to the Kelsey one, more likely to show up on the card, even if it might be for a quarter unit, maybe something just a little bit less than a half unit. Welcome to the main event. Fight! Baltimore -1.5 taking on Buffalo. Holy mother of God. We get Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. Please, NFL, we need one good playoff game. Now, I do think the other three, they're good chance that both dogs, both Washington and Houston, at least show up in some capacity. I'm obviously hoping that the Rams get annihilated or just win by a touchdown, Philly. Maybe it can be a competitive game for the rest of it. But we get Baltimore and Buffalo outside of Ray Davis on the running back spot is perfectly healthy for the first time all season long. Guys, obviously Amari Cooper, they're just rotating every wide receiver, and this is a stone cold disaster to project some of the snap counts. Did you look at the snap counts? I look at the snap counts every single week. Why don't I tell you about the snap counts here from the Buffalo side and how big of a headache it is to even try to project what you're looking at? Matt Collins led the team with 68% of snaps. Keon Coleman, 61%. Khalil Shakir, only 53% of snaps, although whenever he's on the field, he's getting targeted ad nauseum. Curtis Samuel annihilated that slate, 39% of snaps. And Amari Cooper, 5th, 36% of snaps, even though he's the most talented of the 5. Oh, I don't understand. But Buffalo, they're definitely getting back to what they like to do, which is a lot of 12 personnel, finding more of those guys, because if you go through the snap counts at the tight end position, 61% for Dawson Knox, 38% for Dalton Kincaid. Both of them, obviously, Knox out there to do a lot of run blocking, and obviously that was also a game script where they were up by a lot. So it's very difficult to figure out some of the snap shares there because it is so flat across the entire grouping. As for Baltimore, Zay Flowers, as of recording this like 10 minutes ago, got downgraded to doubtful. So we are going to be seeing Baltimore down a major piece for this showdown, and yet we're looking at -1.5. And there are a couple of reasons that I can throw out why. First off, Lamar Jackson, brought him up a little bit in the Jaden Daniels discussion. He's had an MVP caliber season as well. Both of these quarterbacks deserve an MVP this season. I personally would vote for Lamar Jackson, even though I love Josh Allen, brought it up before, met him at the Masters, 2 years ago it was now? One of the best guys you could ever meet. He was ironically hanging out with Sam Darnold. I could just flip out at Sam Darnold. But we are not going to do that because he doesn't matter anymore. He's probably not going to be on my team. We're probably going to franchise tag him. But Derrick Henry is the other biggie for this one. If there's one thing that I am pretty positive that the Denver Broncos are not good at, it is running the football. And they had no semblance of a running game. They had a scheme that they ended up making inactive before that game. And Javonte Williams and Jordan McLaughlin, I will remember you. Absolutely brutal stuff that we're looking at there. So for this game specifically, I'm looking at those two major pieces. Lamar Jackson rushing, looking at Mr. Derrick Henry rushing. But there's a sneaky one, friends, and I appreciate the sneakiness. I think this is going to be a showdown. I think it's really hard to decide. It's going to be a play here, a play there. It's really hard to predict, in my personal opinion. I keep landing on two. Either, again, it's inside of this number, and at -1.5, I'm not going to be remotely touching this. But Justice Hill is kind of the unsung guy here in this entire situation. I think that there's a lot of ways, either in negative game scripts that he ends up out on the field a lot, or in really positive game scripts where you don't necessarily want to have Derrick Henry ran into the ground. Now, of course, you're going to do everything you humanly possibly can to win this football game, but you get such a different dynamic because of how dynamic Justice Hill is. And if I'm going to admit to one mistake, I don't regret any bet I made last week except for Justice Hill. I attached rushing with the receiving, even though I felt much more confident that rushing was going to be, the 1-2 looks that he was going to get were going to be the difference maker. He got 6 rushing attempts against Pittsburgh, and not all of those came in garbage time. 2 of them came in garbage time, but 4 of them in neutral game script situations in the first and second quarter. I am very mad that I attached Justice Hill in a game that they were going to be up by 1 million, because then Derrick Henry was going to just run it, and that takes away a lot of his receiving equity. He had 4 catches for what it's worth. You would normally think you'd do better than 13 yards in those scenarios, but we're going to go to the 7.5 rushing yards for Justice Hill. Way too low of a number for somebody I still expect to get mixed in here. I know it's a weird one, but nothing on the anytime touchdown board stands out to me because, well, all the Baltimore numbers are inflated. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Lakely, who we knew was going to be the major beneficiary there, was Zay Flowers off the field. They went to a lot more 12 personnel, but this guy, he's going to help out in the passing game, but Buffalo's going to be ready for those kind of pieces. I think over 7.5 rushing yards, a way better rushing attack showing up here in Buffalo than what they just saw. And obviously a way better football team as well. Buffalo, Josh Allen, he should find success here throwing the football, but nothing really showing up for me on that side of the counter. So Justice Hill, this is actually my second favorite play of the entire weekend. More to come in the premium Discord. And that does it for an information-laden divisional round edition of NFL Lindy's. Just head to the comment section below. Let me know your favorite plays that exist on the board. I'm always looking there. I'm looking for plays to be added to the card from all of you sharp people out there listening to me on a week in, week out basis. And if they're not sharp people, that's okay too. You can sign up for Lindy 50. Get down below. You can get all my plays. They're going to make you money over any long-term sample size, but we're obviously paying attention to 4 games, tons to be getting to later on here. I'm going to get out of here. Producer Jacob, thank you again. Oh, let's have a better weekend, friends. I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the NFL Divisional Round this weekend.